I've always been a very big fan of vintage style cartoons, vintage style Hollywood films, and I've always wanted to, especially after seeing WandaVision in particular, episodes 1 and 2, I've really wanted to culminate my own black and white, sitcom-y, like cheesy style vintage, Hollywood film. And that's always been the inspiration for me as a growing filmmaker. And that's just something that, I've looked up to, and I'm, very proud of how it turned out.
Awesome. So how would you describe this film in your own words?
Very, I would say it's funny, but not too funny. It has a lot of cheesy moments and has a lot of super eventful moments, that's for sure. But overall, in one way I would describe it is just simply fun and entertaining. It's a very different style film than you see nowadays, so it's very unique for sure.
When you first finished the script, what was the core idea or emotion that stood out?
So this film originated as a like modern style, like everything modernized around it, and it had no elements about it whatsoever that's very vintagey. And after I finished the script, I had my co-producer, Cameron, look over it, and he immediately got Bewitched, like Dick Van Dyke Show vibes from it. And I just, that was something that was very inspiring to hear, because I grew up always kind of looking up to that authenticity of film back then. So it's something that I was like, I'm just gonna send it and go for that authenticity feel of the 50s and stuff like that, and it worked out pretty well.
So how do you hope that audiences feel when they leave the theater?
Well, I hope that they feel like they've just seen a lot of hard work and play. Like, I want them to feel like they just watched something that's authentic to especially older audiences, to when they were growing up, and younger audiences to what they can imagine what it was like growing up back then. And I want it to be an inspiration that anyone can make films from any era they want, as long as they're willing to put the work in and everything like that.
So what was your overall vision or tone for the film, and how did you approach achieving that?
So the overall vision was, as I said, very inspired by that, kind of WandaVision vintage 1950s sitcom-y Hollywood look. So the vision for that, stands as that. I put a lot of research into not only how they looked, how they sounded, and how they were paced. I also did a lot of research on how they were shot, how they were lit, and wanted to authentically recreate the process instead of just authentically recreating the look, if that makes sense.
So how did you collaborate with your cinematographer or production designer to shape the film's aesthetic?
So I was actually the DP of this film as well. So I can't really stress enough how important it is for DPs to know about lighting. That is super important as a DP to know what looks good and what doesn't look good on camera. My assistant director, Alex Janis, him and I worked really closely with each other to ensure that authentic look on the camera. And it was very challenging at times because we shot in color and we knew we were gonna put it to black and white. So making sure the lighting was good, making sure the ambiance was good, making sure everything was, quiet, and everything was surreal in that moment, to make sure it looked good in post, which is always very challenging because you always have to think about the edit at the end of the day.
So what was your approach to working, did any part of the story evolve or surprise you when you worked?
Yes, that's for sure. So especially one part of the film, I'm not gonna give away any spoilers or anything like that, but there was this one part where my assistant director just had this brilliant idea of how to approach a shot. and it was nothing like I ever thought of. So having that collaboration on set was insanely helpful, of having, a bunch of different minds. Actors brought in things that I didn't even think they would bring in on set. I kind of just imagined they would do exactly as what the script said, but they kind of always grasped that creativity of and thought about the end result and the vibe I'm going for, and tried, even if I didn't ask them to authentically recreate, how it was like looking back then. And that's something that I applaud very much to my actors, my assistant director, my PAs, grips, all of that stuff is everyone was always thinking about the end result, and that's super important in the film.
So what was your approach to working with the cast to kind of bring out these performances you're talking about?
So again, the cast and I, Luke deMena, a star actor, him and I, we worked pretty closely, and I constantly reminded him, the vibe of this film, to make sure he knew what he was going for. And although he didn't really, no one on the set had any experience working on film sets back then. They all did their fair share of looking into the script, seeing what it was about, authentically trying to repurpose it in a modern tone, but also stay true to that vintage vibe. And they did such an amazing job collaborating with, not only with each other, with me, but with, the film, if that makes sense.
What was the atmosphere like on set?
It was super fun. So many fun moments, so many goofy behind the scenes moments. And yeah, it was just honestly, it felt more like a hangout rather than a film set, because of how good the atmosphere was. And it was just, everyone was always in the right mind when they wanted to get focused, and always in the right mind when they wanted to be goofy and just to act, crazy on set. And it was just a very good balance of those two, and made it just a very enjoyable time for not only me, but everyone there.
Can you share a memorable moment from behind the scenes, like one that really captures the spirit of the production?
Yeah, so again, I don't want to spoil, but there's one shot where one of our characters, one of our actors, he has to open up the trunk in the car. And the only way we really knew how to get that shot was to actually put the DP me inside the trunk looking out. So very serious moment, film's reason, very detrimental moment to the film. And we always try to capture the serious tone. So every single time this character always opened up the trunk, he just saw me super focused, just staring, toning him out on the camera. And it took 10 takes before you could do it without laughing. It was super fun in the moment. It was we didn't even think we would get through that shot for sure. But yeah, that was a super interesting part of on-set experience.
I guess along those same veins, without giving anything away, are there any themes in this film that are personally meaningful to you?
Yeah, like I said, the whole theme of it is, authentically a 1950s short film, and wanted it to look like it was shot back then, but in modern times, of course. But I don't really want to give anything away, but just the theme of, the craziness during the holidays, that's something I've always wanted to look into, because it is super intense during that time period. And especially around the times where, right after Thanksgiving and stuff, and where this film is actually set, it really brings out that craziness and that bizarreness to the holiday season and shopping during the holiday season and stuff like that, and how you often will run into the unexpected.
So how do you hope this film sparks conversation among viewers?
I want them to mainly talk about it highly, of course, and I want them, hopefully, to see how something could just turn on someone so drastically in 1 minute during those times, and to be not only more careful, but to also be able to share memorable personal experiences that maybe something didn't go that way like it does in the film, for a specific person, and just how that, how that part of the story could resonate with them, but in a comedic tone, if that makes sense.
So, how does this project compare to others you've directed? Was there anything new or different?
Very different, obviously. Everything else I've directed was mainly just goofy skits shot on an iPhone, and just mainly very quick pace. Like, it got done within a week or something. So this is technically, I guess, speaking, my first professional style short film, and that is, a memorable experience, of course, to anyone dealing with all of this stuff, the atmosphere and the very intense vibe of real professional short films. So that in itself was very different, and obviously this film taking as long as it is going to, being very different. Like I said, goofy skits that are done within like a week or something. That's not really anything like it is now. So it's just something that takes a lot of adapting and patience with it, and that's just a very new experience to me as a whole.
What's one thing you want people to know before they watch the film?
Oh, that's a hard question. I want them to know what to expect, and what to expect is what not to expect, if that makes sense. Like in the film, I can confidently say that you'll never guess. You probably won't guess what's going to happen, and you won't really be able to put your finger on how that'll affect, the characters in the film and stuff. It's all about how something so small can make such a big difference in your life, basically. And that's something I want you to know before the film starts.
So, are there any upcoming projects you're excited about that you can share with us? Final question.
So I don't really have any projects in my mind right now. Mainly just focused on this guy. It's taken a lot of time, but yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, if there's technically projects within this one that I would love to share with you, but I do not want to give away anything about the film. But yeah, just this film entirely is just an upcoming project that is. I'm insanely grateful and very excited to share with you guys. And that'll be very, very, very insane to me and surreal that I produced, directed, and created this masterpiece in my eyes. So yeah.
Bonus question.
What is it?
This item I've heard about. Tell us just a little bit more about that item. Final question.
Okay. If you growing up back in the day, if you grew up back in the day, I did. Obviously, I'm 19-year-old student filmmaker and stuff, but it has a very feel to it, to where you feel like you'll recognize it if you grew up back then. It has that vibe to it that you feel like you're gonna recognize it, but you're not really going to. And it's just something that is just a very, probably I would say people collect them. I think I would say. So if that is of any hint as to what the item is, it's I would say people collect them. But yeah, I could be wrong. But that is the only thing I'll say about the item. I don't wanna give away too much about it. Thank you so much. Was it good? How long was it? You already. Okay, that's good. And